The Tim Heale Thirsty Thursday live stream from 7 until 9 weekly. Here's your host, Tim Heale.
So, I'm going to bring in my next guest. So, here's a guy, he's got his own YouTube channel. He does an awful lot for the military community. It's a great channel. So, Chris, welcome.
Hello, Tim.
How you doing, mate?
Yeah, can you hear me all right?
Yeah, sound as a pound.
Yes, I like that. I like the cheers. I could hear some female voices in there somewhere, I think.
I was trying to get on your channel earlier today to put some comments in, and for some reason I tried 3 different cards, wasn't having any of it. I don't know whether it's me at this end or whether it's the system on that. What's name? But
pass on that one, mate. I get asked a lot about these platforms, but I have enough trouble sorting my own life out without. Yes.
So you obviously heard some of what's going on this evening. We're looking at the sheer numbers at the moment, and as far as we can work out, there are a lot of veterans taking their own lives, and we're trying to find ways of helping them out, not with the suicide, obviously, but making them aware that there's help out there for them. And I know your channel does a lot for it as well. And you've been through the mill yourself. I mean, if anybody wants to know what Chris went through, there's 2-hour episodes that he did with me a little while ago now. And Chris has got a hell of a story to tell. Being an ex-bootneck and beyond. Mm-hmm. So, Chris, can you tell us some of your experience of where you've sought help in the past in the veterans community?
Oh, good question, Tim. Let me just think. So, it's not just so straightforward, is it?
No,
because you have to want help, and that doesn't really go hand in glove with the identity that you have as a service person. So yeah, I mean Tim, it's just a tough one, to just say, oh, reach out. I don't know. It's kind of somewhat lip service, isn't it? And this is where there's the gap in the research. And obviously there's a gap in the research because the government don't want to admit that veterans make up amongst the biggest suicide statistics, the biggest drug and alcohol or drug statistics. There's the prime one for you, There's a prime example there that how many veterans have been made aware that alcohol's, speaking from a substance misuse specialist point of view, it's the worst drug there. And of course you get kind of trained in drinking, don't you, in the military? and
well, I'm not so sure so much nowadays, but certainly back when I was a young soldier, it was a proper drinking culture. I mean, come lunchtime, or come naffy break, the officers would scarper. Come lunchtime, you wouldn't see any senior ranks after lunch because they'd all be in the mess all afternoon. And that was particularly prevalent when we were in Germany. I mean, Germany was, we were, I don't know, functioning alcoholics.
Yeah, so, of course. The issue, and it's pretty straightforward. It just comes down to identity. You build up this powerful identity of who you think you are in the military, and it goes again hand in glove with very damaged, for the most part, or quite often, I should say, damaged childhoods. And it, you know, gives you a sense of purpose while you serve, and gives you a sort of massive ego trip. And then, of course, when you leave, you don't have that anymore. And that's absolutely fine, so long as you can start
Good kids, eh?
Yeah. Oi!
Gotta love
Yeah,
it. It's what happens
all,
on a live show.
Yeah, that's all well and good, but you know, you the problem is we have to tune into a higher purpose in life and our higher self, and stop living in our ego. And in that gap from leaving the forces to finding what I call enlightenment, this is where people are dying, and people are ending up on the street, and people. And this is why, I mean, you know, a terrible tale of a former Marine. On the outside, you'd think he was doing so successfully, and hung himself in his blues. So, you know, his #1 uniform.
Mm.
I bet he polished those medals before he killed himself. I bet he polished those boots. And you see, he's buying into the old, you know, the old identity, not knowing, because why would you know that there's something so much better out there for you, and it's called life, and it's great. And when you leave the forces and you've had that comfort blanket for some people 22 years, and again, friend of mine the other day, Sergeant Major, day he left after, I think he probably did about 25 years, killed himself the next day. You come out that comfort blanket, and it's hard, you know, it can be tough. It can be tough in Civvy Street. It can be tough dealing with civilian people. I mean, it can be tough dealing with military people, but and then things start to go wrong. So you go back on your crutch, which is the alcohol. Of course, that doesn't help. So then you start to see your life spiraling out of control. And then the next thing you know, your partner's saying, "Look, honey, the kids can't be around this stuff. I'm going to take them to the grandparents." And so you're on your own. Then you get all these forms that are just thrust at you from the government if you want to claim this or apply for this or and they just seem daunting because you've never had to like do this stuff before, and before you know it, you're just living in a massive downer. And for some people, when they hit rock bottom, which was my case, like I couldn't go any further. I mean, I physically, mentally couldn't go any further. And I was down there so long that I just ended up thinking, hang on a sec, this is not working, is it? You know, this just getting off my head all the time and escaping, it's not working. And like, why am I doing it? Because I used to be a Royal Marines commando. I used to be, you know, a young, handsome dude who all the girls loved, driving a BMW and on top of, how did I get from there to there? And for me, and I'm sure I speak for many people, it was just a period, it was just a great point of reflection to go, yeah, how did I get to here? And like, why did I get to here? And at that moment, you got to look you look yourself in the mirror and think, do you know what? If like I got myself here, only I can get out of it. And the great thing about that is you're accepting personal responsibility. And once you accept personal responsibility, you're taking action. And as we all know, if you ever get a problem in life, you got to act. And then it ceases to be such a problem. And you realize, hang on, I've got the power here. Whereas before I was in victim mode, where I thought I was, helpless. Wasn't my fault, everyone else's fault, civvies don't understand me, blah, 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 blah. And it's at that moment you go, no, hang on, like only I can get myself out of here. And that's a wonderful point to get to, as ironic as it sounds. And for someone like me, just to maybe help people at home understand, like, that's the best point in my life. Like, and I say that slightly flippantly, because a lot of people don't get back from there, do they? They don't have that moment, and that's because I'd say for the most part, although obviously I can't really speak for other people, but I'd say that they're still clinging to that old identity of who they used to be and what it meant to them, and rather than seizing that moment of enlightenment, thinking, do you know what, I can actually like build back better here. Sound like Boris Johnson, don't I? I'll keep it clean, Tim, because I know you run a family show. But insert derogatory term here, folks. But yeah, that's kind of it, Tim. This is what everyone's missing. This is because there's no one's ever going to highlight what I've just told you, because the government don't want to admit that the machine doesn't work, and it's not just broken, it's like really, really broken. And of course they don't want to, because the government represent the ruling elite, or the global mafia, as I call them. The global mafia create all the wars and profit massively by them. And they're not going to have their bods in health, the health minister addressing this issue, because the conclusion everyone would draw would be, this kind of isn't good, is it? This isn't good. There's something very wrong in the forces. There's something very wrong with people coming back from conflict. I mean, a chap had on the podcast a couple of days ago, did 7 years in the military, then had to do 4 years in hospital to get over what he'd experienced in the military. And this is not even taking into consideration the underlying mental health issues that many of us join the forces with, because we come from, on a varying scale, but in my case, incredibly damaged childhood. And yeah, there you go. When you leave, the comfort blanket's gone. It all hits you in a oneer. You can't deal with it because you've not been trained to deal. You've never had to think in this kind of context before. Like I say, if you hit the bottle or whatever substance, things start to spiral. And it's a very cold, lonely, and dark place. And like I say, some people, they don't get out of it, do they, Tim?
No, and that's the problem. And I think we're sat on the tip of a volcano at the moment. I think we haven't seen the amount of mental health issues that are going to be coming our way from veterans, particularly the last sort of 20 years, where we've been in conflict quite a lot. I mean, you look at from the year 2000, when we were in sort of fairly, I say, well, Kosovo. I mean, Kosovo was a bit ugly in places. I mean, I was out in Kosovo. I spent a year there. I saw a few of the war graves, and that's horrible. And then I was in Macedonia when 9/11 happened, and that put us into Afghanistan. Say 5 months later, I was flying into Kabul. For me, Kabul was great. when I went to Iraq, I mean, that was pretty ugly in places. And then I came back to Afghanistan another 2 times. And yeah, there's some pretty horrific stuff in that time. Losing lots of mates and things doesn't help. But guys have been in conflict there all the time. And particularly for the infantry types that have been out in the patrol bases and the forward operating bases, seeing horrible stuff in day out. Yes, they've been getting some of the trim treatment, particularly the latter years, once the army started taking on it. The Marines were doing it for about 20 years before the army picked up on it. But that still isn't enough. We're still going to see a lot more of guys coming with mental health issues in the future. We're still seeing guys from the Falklands having issues this many years later, 40 years later. There's still Falklands vets.
Guys from the Falklands, Tim. Sorry, got to keep stretching my back, my broken back. I've got to stretch it out a bit. But yeah, they are boys from the Falklands, bless them, and girls, because the nurses were on the ships, weren't they? And the civilian men and women were manning those cruise liners or ferries. There's many yet to be diagnosed. Don't know what's wrong with them. Lived with it all their life, knowing some is not quite right. Speak to some of these people. They'll never go to a remembrance parade. They'll never go to a reunion. It's like, well, no. The Mines is trying to, trying to protect the very damaged person inside, and it is. It's incredibly sad. And then, of course, it doesn't help being placed under house arrest for 2 years for, to, let's just say, make the trillionaire big pharmaceutical companies even richer than they already are, when people need to be having community around them and family around them. And what's going to happen if you lock someone up for 2 years who's got a drink problem? Sadly,
I can vouch for that.
Yeah, oh my God,
I mean, that's how I got into the podcasting game in the first place.
I mean, it's awful. Imagine you're a struggling veteran. You've hit the booze. You're trying to manage talking to your boss over Zoom while you're bloody drinking vodka out of your tea mug because you got no one to talk to, that you developed a bit of a problem. The kids are running around because they're not in school, and you're supposed to be homeschooling. It's people got to wake up. People got to wake up and realize the government is never coming to help you because they don't like you. I mean, the government is made up of people that consider themselves a class above you. And not just that, but they don't work for you. They work for, I call it the global mafia. And we that's probably a little bit too much for this chat, Tim, but they don't work for you. They work for the ultra billionaires that have got family bloodlines going back years. They own all the banks. They own the media. They own Hollywood. They own the music industry. They own every single, for those people that are still foolish enough, apologies if that offends anyone, but foolish enough to still pay their license fee for that BBC terrorist channel. We've got to start waking up to this. If we want to support our brothers and sister veterans. And of course that gets hard because when you're talking about identity, people don't want to face the truth, do they? They want to bury their head in the sand and polish their medals and, God save the Queen. And that's not helpful. You got to understand you got to have a holistic perspective of what's going on in the world. And for that, you've got to look at conflict going back to First World War. You've got to look at who stands stands to gain from sending these young men and women off, only to come back in body bags or with their eyes missing or limbs missing. But I think after Vietnam, Tim, this is a real clincher here. If people can get their head around this. Yeah, after Vietnam, the public turned against war. They didn't want it. They saw it for what it was. You know, what did America lose? It 59,000 young men. I say young men. I'm sure there was some women in there. Public didn't want it. They called it out. They said, no, you've kept this war going as long as you can because you're making masses of profit on the bombs, the bullets, the guns, the corporations that had their claws into Vietnam. Even before war was declared, there were the huge American corporations already based in the south of Vietnam, just going, come on, let's get our war, because then we can, you know, we can.
There was no military in Laos, was it?
Oh yeah, and then yeah, of course. But
kicked off.
What it's important to understand is the powers that be. They're very clever, Tim. You know, they knew then the public had turned against war, and damn right, because if you're up, if you support war, you got to be prepared to, I don't know, send your kids off to it. You got to be prepared to watch your kids get bombed. If you support war, this is what you support: is the death of children, basically. And what happened is these, you know, I'll call them the psychopaths, but these billion-dollar corporations realized they had a problem because for their next phony sham war, no one was going to support it. So they started to slowly indoctrinate the public through movies like Platoon, one of my favorite films of all time, ironically, which is Rambo First Blood, which started to look at the veteran story and started to sell it on, oh, look at these, you know, these heroes. All they did was fight for their country and their honor, and they've come back damaged, and the public hate them. You see how they cleverly twisted it. And off the back of that, and even, I mean, people remember the pop charts in the UK. We had songs like No, 19, you know, these poor kids in Vietnam, they were just 19. Feel sorry for them. They're heroes. And they've just been brainwashing people for the last, what was it, 50 years now, with war isn't a bad thing, that we should all go, no, we should never do that ever again. Like they said after the Great War, the First World War. Oh, no, they cleverly twisted it that, oh, no, war is heroic. And you got the song, A Big Marine Named Camouflage, you know, and of course the public who know no different, and like I didn't when I was a teenager when that song come out, and No, 19 and Platoon, and so what that's warped into is a culture of, oh, thank you for your service, sir, by people that have only ever really played Call of Duty or just parrot what they hear in the media, and they hear people say that, and they say it. They, you know, I always say to people, you wouldn't thank me for my service if you knew me. I was a knob. I want to, but no, seriously, you know, you wouldn't. Some of my behavior while I served, it was utterly disgraceful. You would have hated me. You wouldn't be thanking me for my service. But this is how clever. So we've got this situation now. It's, can I buy you a cup of coffee, sir? And you know, a lot of it obviously comes across the Atlantic. But that's where these you know, there's a certain stronghold of psychos over there. We saw it around 9/11. We saw the neocons, that we saw their project for the new American century. They said, look, we're gonna increase America's capacity around the globe. We need, or they said it's actually not going to happen unless we have a catalyzing event like a new Pearl Harbor. And then what happened the next year is, you know, we had the fairy, we had the fairy tale of buildings can just like fall out the sky. And they're clever, Tim, and I think all this needs to be discussed. It all needs to be on the table, because let's stop kidding ourselves that we look after our veterans. We don't. We send these service persons off to these conflicts that no one benefits from. We saw it in Afghanistan. In Afghanistan, America's job was to go in, smash the country up, make a bad name for themselves, then just leave. That was their role, and they played it. I'm not talking about the wonderful American people here, my brothers and sisters who I love dearly, the most kind people on the planet. I'm talking about the role from the global mafia is, right, this is what we need you to do. And then what's going to happen is then China will come in and do business with the, I don't know, I don't want to say the name of the group that begins with T.
No.
But we know the people, the people that wear the black, right? And this is what we're up against. And I'm sorry if I'm blowing a lot over your audience, Tim, but it's really important that we start switching on and understand what's going on. That war is not heroic. There's nobody out there that are bad guys. I've lived, worked, and traveled in 85 countries now across all 7 continents. And bar the odd person you meet that tries to rob you or do you, the vast majority of people on the planet are bloody lovely people, kind. Most places I've been, they give me when I've been backpacking, they give me their bed and they sleep on the floor. And this needs to be understood, because there isn't all this big arch enemy out there that we've got to, we're all going to get bombed in our beds in fort. I mean, we fell for that one, didn't we?
Yeah. It's not the average Joe on the street that's the problem. It's the big money. And so if you want to know what's going on, follow the money.
Yes.
Anyway, Chris, just coming up to the hour, so we're going to have a short break while I do some housekeeping, and then I'll bring my next guest in, and then after that, we'll get all the guests back in, and we'll have a little bit of a parlay for the last bit.
Yeah,
so
excellent. I shall go and I'm going to go and wrestle a badger.
Yeah, come back. Don't get yourself beaten up too much. So we're up to the hour. This is the next break. So what we got coming up? Let's just because we do such a serious job on a Thursday, we're going with a Tuesday. So we're going to do a quiz, some fun facts, and a channel review with Keith and myself on a Tuesday, just for an hour from 9 till 10, just for some fun, just to lighten things up. So get that stuck in your diaries. That's going to be fun. Next Thursday, boom, we've got the archaeological special coming. You're going to enjoy that one. That's the one that we had to postpone. The guys are coming back. We're going to look at archaeology, going to look at that in fairly good depth, and we're also going to look at the impact on archaeologists' mental well-being when a big site is closed down because they found something, and the archaeologists then have to come in to assess the site to see whether it's of archaeological significance, and the pressure that's put on to hurry up and get the site open again has an effect. So that's what we're going to talk to these guys about, and should be a great evening. Then and then we've got coming up after that the 13th. I'm still working on it. I'm still trying to get the guys to come along. It's a work in progress, but it should involve animals, shall we say. Then I think we're going on the 20th with an open forum. Why I put myself through open forums, I don't know. Q&A. So if you've got some questions that you want answering, I might come up with a special between now and then. And then the 27th is another little work in progress. And once I've got that sort of finalised, I'll let you know. And then the fighter pilot's coming on the 3rd of November. Just want to tell you about, just give us a second to bring this up. Where are we? That one, and that one. Right. Ride to the Wall, coming up this weekend, Saturday. It's there are quite a few veteran motorcyclists that are going to descend on the National Memorial Arboretum up in Staffordshire, and I should be one of those. So that's what's coming this weekend, and I'll have an update for you next week on how it went. If I get a chance, I'm not sure I will, I might see if I could do a couple of little lives while I'm there, just to give you a flavour of what it is. So if you've got your bell icon clicked, you might see it pop up on Saturday where I'm going live. So that's happening this Saturday, Ride to the Wall. And it's all about remembering our fallen veterans, our fallen comrades. Looking forward to it. It'll be the first time I've been to it.
The Tim Heale Thirsty Thursday live stream from 7 until 9 weekly.